Breakfast Betrayal. Cereals, creamers, and colors. Breakfast looks harmless until you read the fine print. Start with the bowl kids beg for Froot Loops. In the US, the colors come from red 40 and yellow 5 and 6. They brighten the cereal in the morning, but they also trigger a different response overseas. In much of Europe, those same hues either come with a front-of-pack warning that they may affect activity and attention in children, or they're replaced with plant-based color extracts. The box still features the same mascot. The difference is a line of text, or an absence of certain dyes that quietly hands power back to parents. Here, why that matters. The stakes at 7 a.m. aren't abstract. If a child is sensitive to synthetic dyes, breakfast can set the tone for the school day. Teachers see it first. Fidgeting focus slips the note home. In the US, there's no warning to weigh before you pour. In the EU, the label forces a tiny pause. That pause is the point. Action. Kellogg's and others have long relied on BHT for freshness in American cereals, a synthetic antioxidant tucked near the end of the ingredient list. It slows rancidity and extends shelf life. Abroad, limits and consumer pressure push brands toward different preservation methods or cleaner formulations. You'll still find sweetened loops in a London shop, but the colors look a bit less like crayons, and the preservative line often reads differently. Impact. The cereal tastes the same to most kids, but the exposure profile changes, and so does the decision a parent gets to make. Now pour a second bowl, Lucky Charms. In the US, the marshmallows glow with red 40 and yellow 5 and 6. In parts of Europe, the dyes shift toward beet, paprika, or carrot concentrates, or the package carries that behavior warning. Same leprechaun, 2 recipes. The emotional math is simple. Is the bright color worth the question mark? In many countries, regulators decided parents deserve that question right on the front. Meanwhile, something else is happening on the counter. Coffee creamer slides in as the adult upgrade. For years, popular creamers built their texture with partially hydrogenated oils, the industrial trans fats the WHO says have no safe level. US rules phased them out by 2018, but the legacy is confusion. Shelves still carry a maze of formulations, powdered, refrigerated, seasonal flavors, private labels. Action. A shopper grabs what looks familiar. Impact. Unless they check, they may miss newer oils, added emulsifiers, or stabilizers like Carrageenan that some consumers try to avoid. Abroad, the path to reformulation was earlier and cleaner in many markets. Here, the history lingers in old habits and brand trust. Get this, Pop-Tarts sit at the crossroads of dessert and breakfast. In US kitchens, frosted strawberry means red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6 in the icing and filling. In Europe, the same flavor often leans on natural color extracts, or the hue is toned down. Action. A kid opens a box in an airport lounge, 2 countries printed on identical packaging. In one, the pastry looks like a bakery pink. In the other, it shines like nail polish. The impact is subtle but real. A dye you don't need becomes a daily staple because convenience is king at 6:45 a.m. Here's a micro story. A school nurse in Sacramento keeps a drawer of behavior notes. After a classroom birthday, a 7-year-old spirals restless, tears, a call home. The teacher mentions red icing and special cereal. The parent shrugs. It was a treat. That night, they Google the label. The next week, they test dye-free cereal. The notes slow down. That family isn't a study. It's a pattern echoed in state toxicology reports that say some children are more sensitive and benefit when dyes drop. Practical reality. You can find EU-style swaps domestically if you look. Some cereals advertise colors from natural sources. Ingredient lines mention spirulina extract, turmeric, annatto, beet juice concentrate. For preservatives, look for tocopherols or rosemary extract instead of BHT or BHA. If a box still says BHT for freshness, that's the flag. For Pop-Tarts, scan for paprika oleoresin and vegetable juice color instead of the numbered lake dyes. The flavor won't vanish, the glow will. And coffee, 2 quick checks. 1. Skip any creamer with hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated in the oils, even if the front says 0 trans fat. Serving size games can hide small amounts. 2. If Carrageenan bothers your stomach or you just want to avoid it, choose creamers that use gel and gum or go simple. Milk, half and half, or shelf-stable options that list milk, cream, sugar, and not much else. Abroad, many mainstream creamers moved off the old fats years earlier. In the US, brand families are big and inconsistent. Read the back, not the billboard. Meanwhile, cereal makers in Europe added one more twist, warning labels tied to specific dyes. That single sentence turns a passive purchase into an active choice. In the US, advocacy groups pushed regulators to follow suit. states started to listen. You'll see bills targeting synthetic dyes in school foods and calls for clearer disclosures. Until policy catches up, your best leverage is the scanner in your hand. So when breakfast turns neon pause, ask what the color does other than sell the box. Ask why the same brand tones it down when a regulator asks, but not when you do. Then try the A-B swap, 1 week with the legacy label, 1 week with the dye-free version. Track sleep, focus, and the number of notes that come home in the backpack. For many families, that's all the evidence they needed to make the change stick. Bottled glow. Sodas, sports, and energy drinks. Snacks got loud, but bottles got brighter. Walk into any gas station and the cold case looks like a light show. Here, S where labels split hardest. Same can, 2 recipes, the stakes aren't abstract. This is what teens chug before practice, what travelers grab between gates, and what late shift workers lean on at 2 a.m. Start with the old lightning rod, citrus sodas. For decades, some U.S. formulas used brominated vegetable oil to keep flavor oils from separating. Abroad, the ingredient disappeared years ago. Japan banned it in the 1970s. The EU kept it out. The U.S. only revoked authorization recently, and you still see legacy stock on certain shelves. Action. One consumer buys a bottle in Berlin, no BVO. Their cousin buys the same brand in Boise and checks an older lot. There it is. Impact. The product identities match, but the chemistry doesn't, and trust takes a hit when people compare. Meanwhile, something else was glowing. Sports drinks built a brand on color. That neon isn't hydration. It's dyes like yellow 5 and yellow 6. In Europe, the presence of specific synthetic colors can trigger a warning that they may affect activity and attention in children, which pushes brands to mute the palate or switch to plant-derived colorings. In the US, the bottle still beams from across the aisle. Action. A coach tosses a crate onto the bench. Kids pick by color. Impact. Most never see the dye line on the back panel. And parents never get the front-of-pack nudge they'd see overseas. There's a second layer. Titanium dioxide, a whitening and brightness agent used to make colors pop and coatings look uniform. The EU banned it in foods after safety authorities said they couldn't rule out genotoxicity. Here, the review pace is slower. Some states signal they might act. Many companies quietly reformulate specific candies and drinks. The shelf result is confusing. 2 identical packages, one with TO2 gone, one still using it until inventory's clear. If you're not label fluent, you'd never know the difference. Here's a micro story. A traveler lands at Heathrow, grabs a familiar citrus soda, and notices the ingredient list looks shorter. Same afternoon, they connect through Atlanta, buy the same brand, and see a different additive list. They hold the cans side by side at the gate like they're comparing counterfeit bills. The shock isn't the science. It's the realization that geography changed the recipe more than branding ever did. Energy drinks raise the stakes. In the US, a single can pack the caffeine of 3 strong coffees, plus extras like guarana and taurine. Teens can buy them without anyone asking for ID. Overseas, it gets tighter. Some countries cap caffeine per serving, require age gates, or mandate prominent labels. Action. A 16-year-old in Paris asks for an energy drink at a store. The clerk asks for proof of age. The same kid visits a cousin in Phoenix and loads a case into the cart unnoticed. Impact. Behavior around the product changes because the rules changed first. Let's talk formulas. Abroad, brands often reduce caffeine to meet caps and adjust sweeteners to local laws. In the US, the max hit positioning still sells. The marketing leans on focus, power, and performance. It rarely mentions milligrams per serving on the front. If you scan the nutrition label, you'll find it, but the number means little until you compare it to your daily coffee habit. Meanwhile, emergency rooms keep a quiet tally of caffeine-related incidents among youth. Doctors warn, packaging shines. Now layer in sweeteners and acids. Many U.S. sodas rely on high-fructose corn syrup, backed by cheap corn economics. In Europe, formulas lean on beet or cane sugar. The taste difference is subtle to some, obvious to others. The metabolic story is broader. Added sugars across many products, not just soda. But the formula split reinforces the theme. A can hide a policy choice as much as a flavor choice. Practical checks make this straightforward. On citrus sodas, scan for brominated vegetable oil. Older lots may still show it. On bright drinks, look for titanium dioxide, yellow 5, yellow 6, red 40. On sports drinks, count caffeine if present and look for colors from natural sources. On energy drinks, find the caffeine per serving and multiply by servings per can. If it lists 150 mg per serving and there are 2 servings, that's 300 mg. decide if you drink 3 coffees in 10 minutes. Most people wouldn't. A can disappears faster than a mug. Meanwhile, something else is happening behind the scenes. Logistics reward long shelf life and uniform color. Retailers like predictable rotations, brands like national launches that don't spoil in hot warehouses, a stabilizer that keeps citrus flavors homogeneous, and a dye that holds its glow make planning simple. When regulators abroad remove the option, companies adapt. When regulators at home move slower, legacy formulas linger because inertia is cheap. Here, that's where it gets personal. A parent switches their kid from neon sports drink to a clear version with the same electrolytes. The kid shrugs after practice and drinks it. A student trading energy drinks for coffee starts sleeping again. A frequent flyer picks the non-dyed lemon seltzer instead of the highlighter yellow soda and doesn't miss it after a week. None of these are hero moves. They're small swaps. But small swaps add up when they're daily. The glow sells the story. The label tells the truth. Read the back. Compare across borders when you can. And if the same brand sells a toned-down version overseas, ask for it here. Companies already know how to make it. They're just waiting for a reason. Snack swap. Crackers, chocolates, and candy tricks. Snacks look friendlier than bottles, but the labels play the same game. Quiet chemistry where you'd expect pantry staples. Start with crackers. Ritz and Wheat Thins built their reputations on a buttery crunch and a better choice vibe. What keeps that taste consistent month after month isn't just flour and oil. For years, U.S. boxes leaned on preservatives like BHT, sometimes flagged on pack as added to packaging to preserve freshness, which sounds harmless until you realize the goal is shelf life, not flavor. In Europe and Japan, tighter limits and bans pushed manufacturers toward alternatives to tocopherols, rosemary extract, different fats. The cracker still snaps, the preservative story changes. Here, why that matters. The steaks sit in the pantry door where kids grab a quick snack and adults assume plain means simple. You don't expect a synthetic antioxidant debate in a rectangle of wheat. Action. A shopper tosses in a family-sized box before a road trip. Impact. Weeks later, the crackers taste identical because chemistry kept the oils from turning. But the US version often took the long way around the problem, while overseas versions solved it with cleaner option. Meanwhile, chocolate tells a different kind of truth. Mass-market bars in the U.S. often rely on an emulsifier called PGPR, polyglycerol polyrisinolate, to keep viscosity low so the chocolate flows through pipes and molds with less cocoa butter. It's a cost-saving move. The label doesn't say we swapped some cocoa butter. It just lists PGPR near the end. Overseas, the bar may use less of it or none at all, leaning on higher cocoa content or different emulsifiers under stricter limits and clearer labeling. The taste test isn't dramatic. The ingredient philosophy is. Here's the stakes in chocolate form. Cocoa butter is pricey and volatile. PGPR is predictable. Action. A global candy brand calibrates formulas by market. U.S. plant runs push PGPR to hit price points. European runs dial it back and push cocoa percentage higher to meet consumer expectations. Impact. The same wrapper signals different choices about what chocolate should be, rich and short ingredient, or stretched and stabilized. For a holiday box, that trade-off is invisible unless you read the microscopic print. Now the candy aisle goes loud. Skittles still sell the rainbow, but the rainbow isn't the same everywhere. U.S. bags list dyes like Yellow 5, Yellow 6, and Red 40. Until recently, some candies used titanium dioxide to sharpen whites and brightness. The European Union banned TO2 in foods after its safety panel couldn't rule out genotoxicity. Result: reformulations across the block. In the US, reviews move slower and state efforts nudge brands, so you end up with 2 timelines. Rapid changes abroad, staggered changes at home. The bag design barely shifts, the molecules do. Maraschino cherries are the quiet companion to that story. On sundaes and in cocktails, the neon red comes from synthetic dye, most often Red 40 in American jars. European versions increasingly use natural colors or carry stricter labeling. Action. A bar manager in Dublin orders cocktail cherries that look deep, not fluorescent. A cousin in Denver grabs the bright red jar that looks like holiday lights. Impact. Same garnish idea, different color chemistry, and a different regulatory attitude toward what sits in a kid's ice cream bowl. Little Debbie Swiss rolls sit at the intersection of comfort and convenience. The US version lists artificial colors and a roster of stabilizers to keep the swirl pretty and the cake soft through long storage. Abroad, recipes lean simpler or disclose warnings where dyes apply. The memory is the same, the ingredient panel is. Here's a micro story. A headline says candy lawsuit over toxic additive. Click through and the settlement changes a coding ingredient while the product stays on shelves with new fine print. A parent glances at the headline and thinks the brand cleaned up entirely. They never checked the label. The additive they worried about isn't the only one worth watching. Lawsuits make noise, ingredient lines whisper. So what do you do in the snack aisle without moving countries? Practical swaps are real and easy. Crackers, choose versions preserved with tocopherols or rosemary extract. Skip boxes listing BHT or BHA. Some brands quietly offer parallel, simple lines, same crunch, shorter list. Chocolate, pick higher cocoa percentages and bars without PGPR. Simple ingredient lists, cocoa mass, cocoa butter, sugar, vanilla. Signal you're paying for chocolate, not process aids. Candy, look for colors from natural sources and avoid TO2 on the label. If the white looks snow bright, flip the bag. Plant-based whites look softer. Cherries, find jars colored with fruit or vegetable extracts. The red looks less electric, the label reads cleaner. Snack cakes, if you want the spiral, choose smaller packs and fresher dated options to avoid heavy preservation. Or switch to bakery versions where possible. While that was happening on shelves, something else was happening in shipping pallets. Retailers reward long-dated goods. National promotions need identical product in January and June. A preservative that buys 6 extra weeks or an emulsifier that tolerates heat spikes in transit is worth real money. That incentive doesn't go away until policy, retailer standards, or consumer demand pushes back. There's another lever, your own A/B test. Buy the EU-leaning version of a product when available domestically. Many mainstream brands now sell no artificial colors, candy lines, and simple crackers. Run them side by side with your usual. Action, host a living room taste test. Don't tell anyone which is which. Impact, if nobody notices, you just moved your cart without losing the treat. The trick in candy tricks isn't that companies can't make cleaner snacks, they already do. It's that they won't swap the default recipe until someone forces the spreadsheet. A short ingredient list is a vote they understand. A photo of a US label next to its EU twin is a reputational risk they notice. The aisle won't change overnight, but the way you shop can, and brands follow carts faster than they follow petitions. Pantry classics, stuffing, pie crusts, and mixes. From the snack aisle, take 3 steps to the holiday shelf. Boxes you've trusted for decades sit there like old friends. The labels tell a different story. Start with stove-top stuffing. The promise is simple. Boil water, fluff with a fork, call it a side. Hidden in that convenience are synthetic antioxidants, BHA and sometimes BHT, there to keep fats from going rancid while those boxes wait weeks or months to be cooked. That line near the bottom of the ingredient panel buys time in warehouses, not flavor at your table. Here, why that matters. Holidays compress time and stress. You grab what works because guests are walking in and the turkey timer is shouting. The stakes are in the default. If the default relies on preservatives flagged by other countries, you'll never know unless you flip the box. Action. A shopper loads 3 boxes into a cart the Sunday before Thanksgiving. Impact. The meal tastes like memory, but the ingredients follow an American rulebook many trading partners rejected years ago. In the EU and Japan, restrictions pushed brands toward alternatives. Some recipes abroad lean on tocopherols, vitamin E, or reformulate the fat blend entirely. The breadcrumb texture stays, the additive story shifts. Meanwhile, pie crusts tell the same tale. Pillsbury's refrigerated rounds promise bakery results in 10 minutes. Alongside flour and fat, the label often lists BHA and BHT, again, synthetic antioxidants to keep oil stable through the cold chain and in your fridge. The logic is industrial. Crusts travel far, sit in cases, and need to roll out the same every time. Abroad, you'll see tocopherols or natural antioxidants in similar products or simpler ingredient lists that trade longer dating for cleaner labels. Action. A parent unrolls a crust while kids slice apples. Impact. The filling is orchard fresh. The crust is chemistry aided. If you don't read the back, you'd never guess. Now pivot to the baking aisle. Mixes that promise fudgy, chewy, perfect every time. Boxed brownies earn that reputation with fats that behave and a batter that forgives. Historically, that meant partially hydrogenated oils, industrial trans fats now pushed out by the WHO and eliminated from U.S. foods by rule after 2018. The legacy remains in how these mixes are engineered: emulsifiers, stabilizers, and oils chosen for stability first. Overseas, the reformulation story started earlier for many brands. Here, it's patchwork by product line, distributor, and date code. Action: a college student grabs a mix at midnight during finals. Impact: the pan comes out perfect. The ingredient list reads like a lab manual compared to a bakery recipe. Not all colors are in the toy cereal bowl. Raspberry gelatin sits on the same shelf, loud and playful, driven by Red 40 in US boxes. European versions often move to beetroot or carmine in certain markets, or at least carry clearer warnings when synthetic dyes appear. The wobble is the same. The label tells two different stories about how much glow belongs in dessert. Here's a micro story from the aisle. Two regions, one holiday. In Manchester, a traveler pushes a trolley past a stuffing mix that calls out antioxidants from rosemary extract. In Miami, their sister FaceTimes from the Thanksgiving aisle, holding the same brand name with BHA and BHT added to preserve freshness on the back. They laugh, then get quiet. The family table looks the same on both sides of the ocean. The recipes don't. So what's actually happening under the hood? Shelf life economics. A preservative that buys 12 extra weeks means a manufacturer can run fewer changeovers, ship farther with fewer losses, and guarantee promotion windows months ahead. Retailers like the certainty. The chemistry becomes infrastructure. When another country bans or restricts an additive, the company already knows how to live without it. They've done it elsewhere. But reformulating every market means retooling suppliers, reprinting cartons, retraining co-packers. If the US doesn't force it, spreadsheets decide it's not urgent. There's a practical way through this without gutting your holiday plan. Stuffing. Scan for BHA or BHT. If they show up, look for versions preserved with tocopherols or rosemary extract. Many store brands quietly shifted. Or build a 5-ingredient version with day-old bread, onions, celery, butter, broth. It takes more chopping than chemistry. Pie crusts. Plenty of refrigerated and frozen crusts now label no BHA, BHT, or simple ingredient. If you have 15 minutes, a homemade crust with flour, butter, salt, water beats the list, and you can freeze discs ahead. Brownie mix. Check the fat source. No hydrogenated anything, and shorter lists tend to bake just as well. Some brands market no artificial preservatives. They're not always more expensive when on sale. One more quiet additive worth spotting in baking and dessert mixes. Titanium dioxide sometimes shows up to whiten or brighten coatings and fillings. The EU banned it in foods over genotoxicity concerns. Here, reviews continue, and some brands removed it product by product. If you see TO2 on a dessert mix or icing, you have options. Many lines now avoid it and look only slightly less brilliant on the plate. The bigger point, your pantry staples aren't stuck. The industry already runs clean recipes for export. You can align your cart with those by choosing the SKUs that brag about natural antioxidants and colors from vegetable sources. If the box you love hasn't caught up, write the brand. When enough people ask why the EU label looks cleaner than the US one, procurement notices. Holidays are traditions built on repetition. Labels are habits built on incentives. You don't need to rewrite the menu to change the math. Swap the preservative, keep the taste. Trade the glow for the flavor. And when you see "for freshness" on the back, read it as an invitation. There's a version of this that stays fresh without the asterisk.